Hello YouTube and welcome to an all new Elder Scrolls lore video, this time on the Ashaba, which is a shunned tribe of red guards in Hammerfell dedicated to destroying the undead. Now, for this video to make any sense, it's quite important you know a thing or two about how red guards view death and what their beliefs about the afterlife are. I covered some of that in this video, but I covered the entire story in my video on funerals and death beliefs of the races of Tamriel, which is in the description of this video. So pause this video and watch that one if you need a crash course. Alright, now that everybody knows the things that they need to know, let's learn about the Ashaba today. So, as mentioned in the intro, the Ashaba are a tribe of red guards dedicated to the purging of the powerful undead which do harm to the population of Hammerfell. As a tribe, they are nomadic and they rarely come into contact with the rest of Hammerfell's population, as they are shunned from the cities and are seen as cursed, despite serving a very useful purpose to the population. You see, red guards have an immense respect for the dead and even the undead. This is the reason why the red guards mummify all their dead, and red guard tombs are among the most elaborate and most decorated of all types of graves and tombs throughout Tamriel. Building large necropolises for the dead to honor them is not a rarity, and filling them with traps so that no outsider can enter them and disturb the dead in their eternal rest is also pretty common. The one exception to this rule are criminals whose bodies get specifically dumped in places far into the desert where their souls cannot find rest and where they may eventually become easy targets to rise from the ground as undead at some point if a necromancer comes into contact with one of these places. But the red guards venerate the dead to such a degree that even if an undead is raised and is running amok, it's absolute blasphemy to get rid of them, as the red guards believe that even disturbing an undead, so fighting it or hurting it, will make the person fighting the undead cursed in the same way they would be cursed if they disturbed a dead body in a tomb. But what if there's a really dangerous undead, for example a lich running amok, or if a necromancer threatens an entire community with hordes of undead? Well, first the red guards will try to deal with them in a way which does not hurt the undead, for example try to seal the lich magically in a temple, or somehow lock undead hordes away in a cave. But what if that doesn't work? Well, for that the red guards call upon the Ashaba, which means the unclean people or the cursed people. They are shunned by society, exiled and hated, and yet they are the one group who fights the dangerous undead. Like I said in my funerals video, they kind of remind me of the Witchers of the Witcher universe, who are also disliked by society and are basically the only ones capable of dealing with powerful monsters when they come along, and the population will call on them if that happens, but other than that they won't really want to have any contact with Witchers. So in that way they are basically the Witchers of the Elder Scrolls universe, but I digress. The interesting thing is that they do have contact with some in society and are contacted by society often when there is an undead problem to be dealt with. Just like the Witchers when there's a monster problem to be dealt with. They're even known to give friendship coins to outsiders whom they maintain good relations with or owe a debt to. Now, in their fighting against the undead, they still practice great care while slaying them. For example, they have a very specific way with dealing with the undead. They always try to defeat them with as little strikes of their weapons as possible, to keep the body as intact as possible, since they view the body as a sacred chalice which simply needs to be ridden of the corruption inside if it's undead. Therefore, one of the ways they tend to slay the undead is by cleanly beheading it, as that only takes one single strike, and then afterwards the severed head is placed respectfully close to the body for interment. But even the single strike for a beheading comes with a rigorous ceremony for them, as the exact moment of severing, they need to utter a sacred Ashaba plea for forgiveness, and then directly after the severing they have to utter the Ashaba humble apology plea. All of that is likely to keep their own souls as clean as possible, although we don't really get a clear explanation for that. And actually, once they purge the tomb of undead, they also have elaborate rituals and spells of purification to prevent undead from rising again or angry spirits to rise at that place, something which is blasphemous for any red guard to do, but it's tolerated if performed by the Ashaba. Now, the origins of the Ashaba lay in the First Era, during the great migrations of the Red Guards, then still the Yokudans, from Yokuda, the ancestral homeland of the Red Guards, to Tamriel. At the time, Yokuda faced great disaster, so as the Red Guards migrated to Tamriel, waves of warriors came from Yokuda and landed on Hammerfell's coast to clean the place of elves and others so that they would have a place to live. One of these Yokudan migration armies under King Zakwan of the Yokudan Kingdom of Yat fought against a sect of elves on the coast of Hammerfell called the Corellania tribe. In order to clear these elves out of Hammerfell, the warriors from Yokuda fought fierce battles against them, and once the war against these elves seemed to near its conclusion, King Zakwan sent his sons, Prince Samir and Hakmir, to kill the kin lady leading these elves to sort of sever the head from the snake. But the elves were not ready to just give up, and while the princes were away, they infiltrated the palace of King Zakwan and killed him, and then reanimated his corpse to use against the Red Guards, as the laws that they had brought with them from Yokuda already mandated that the undead could not be harmed. You can actually experience this as a flashback in the Elder Scrolls Online, where you play as one of the princes and discuss what they would do with their reanimated father. Their laws decree that his undead body may not be touched, else there would be exile, and none of them could actually succeed their father as the new king, as they both should be exiled if they touched their father's body. But at the same time, they could not leave him as an undead. They then make the difficult decision that one of the brothers would not harm their father and stay away and then succeed him as king, while the other would go and put their father's undead risen body down and accept exile. You as the player can choose which of the princes becomes king and which goes and takes down the undead, resulting in his exile. Actually, you play as the older brother, so the younger brother is ready to, accept exile since you were in line for the kingship, but you can choose to do it yourself and let him be king. In the end, it doesn't really matter who you choose, as one prince gets exiled for putting down their father's undead body, and he would be shunned by society, while the other would take their father's place as king. The exiled prince would leave their colony and start his own tribe of exiles in the desert, where he would live as nomads with his tribe and with his new family, which he also formed in the desert, and they would be nicknamed the Unclean Ones, or Ashaba, by the population of Hammerfell. Years after his exile, however, the exiled prince returned to civilization once more, because his brother, who had a long and successful reign by that point, was now threatened by a band of necromancers who attacked his colony kingdom. The exiled prince then came back with his people, who were already cursed, and they were able to take on the necromancers' horde, so they came to the rescue of those who shunned them and saved them from the undead. They then accepted the role of fighting the undead and protecting the people when they are threatened by the undead, to thereafter return to wandering the desert once more, to wait until they are needed to save the people again, and they took on the motto, "True honor need not be named," because their honor will not be named by society. So, while they are shunned from society, the people of Hammerfell do accept them, and they also seem to see them as necessary. And as such, while they are still outcast, they are a bit normalized by the Second Era, as in the Second Era the Ashaba tribe even pays taxes due to the kingdoms where they hold long-time encampments, and their presence is generally just tolerated. During the Second Era in the Elder Scrolls Online, you can even join them and help them with an undead problem after they were attacked by some necromancers in the Alakir Desert. To be honest, that was a pretty neat quest, at least for vanilla ESO zone standards, at least. So yeah, I recommend giving it a try if you want to know, what it's like to be in Ashaba. Concerning the other eras though, we don't really know anything about how the Ashaba are doing in the 3rd or the 4th era, and by that I mean we literally know nothing about it. But I would like to think that they probably still exist in some way, and if the Elder Scrolls 6 is indeed set in Hammerfell, I would honestly not be surprised if we get a questline where we get to join the Ashama and fight some sort of necromancer. Maybe Menamarco finds a way to return yet again and we have to fight him again. I mean, who knows, the possibilities are literally endless. Just know that if we get an Ashaba questline in the Elder Scrolls 6, or, maybe you as the main character, you literally start in your own version of Helgen, where the undead attack, you harm them, save the village, and are then just imprisoned, in customary Elder Scrolls fashion, only to then be exiled and forced into the Ashaba or something like that. Well, remember that your buddy Zork told you about this idea for the first time. And with that said, that's basically everything I can tell you on the Ashaba, and I really hope that you learned something, and if you did, consider returning for the next Elder Scrolls lore video, probably next week. That being said, all that rests me now is to vocally thank you for watching, and vocally thank my top patrons for supporting this channel. Those top patrons are Mr. Bernardo Binda, Gabriel Binda, Paulo Rasputin, Athena Hyotis, King Chris, Bolch, Scribe of the Scrolls, Doji, Fenrir, Sword of Bushido, Rakai, and Mr. Christmas. It is thanks to these people and all the others on screen that this channel stays alive, and for that I am very grateful. That said, I hope to see all of you in the next Elder Scrolls lore video. Bye bye.